Today's video is going to be all about how to replace the AC blower motor resistor on the R129 Mercedes SL. To start this, you'll want to have the hood in the fully open service position so you'll have access to the area right underneath the windshield wiper. And the first thing we're going to do is take out this cover for the cabin air filter. In addition to the two long screws, there's also three metal clips that hold this plastic piece on. So you'll want to go ahead and unclasp these and then lift the rest of the piece out. So underneath this, you're likely to see these plastic cowl pieces like mine. They just kind of disintegrate over time, and then you're also going to have your cabin filter, which I need to change mine, and probably some debris from outside if you park outside. So you're going to want to pull these out. These are normally held in by screws, but as you can see, it's all broken, so it's just kind of sitting there. So throughout this job, I'm taking a few pauses to get my shop vac and just vacuum out all of the debris as I go along. And then at this step, I'm just going to pull out the cabin air filter as well. Unfortunately, I don't have one to replace it right now, but I'll put it on the list. The next step will be to remove these plastic gutter pieces on either side. They're held in by screws. And then this plastic trim that's underneath the windshield wiper. So this plastic piece will tolerate a little bit of twisting, and you're going to need to do a little bit on either side just to get it out of there. Now the wiper assembly and the motor is exposed. I'm going to do another quick vacuum, and then we're going to unbolt this and pull it out of the car. You have two little 8mm screws holding this plastic tab in place. I guess that kind of centers the assembly, and you can use a wrench, or if you have a ratchet with a socket that'll fit in this area, you could use that as well. Next, you have two 10mm nuts holding the wiper assembly to the metal frame underneath the windshield. And as you can see, these are pretty easy to access and remove. There's one last 10mm nut to undo. So now the assembly is loose, and we still need to undo the connector. The connector is right here next to this vacuum block. You'll just need to undo it and then feed it through the hole in the plastic box that holds the cabin air filter. Now we have a series of screws to remove up top, and then there are a few that hold it at the bottom that I'll show you in a minute. Just be careful during this step not to drop your ratchet against the windshield or something and crack it. But all these should be easy enough to access just with the ratchet and a 3/8 extension. There's also this little dampener piece, I guess, that threads in. This is the mount for the windshield wiper. So you're just going to need to unscrew that. You might need a pair of needle nose or something if it's really tight. Now there's also three screws holding the front part of this whole thing in that are underneath these bits of wiring and the vacuum tubes that go across this. So it's really difficult to get to these, and since I've taken this out before, I left the screws out. But still it's hard to kind of jostle around. I finally figured out that you could pull the wiring harnesses up just enough to get access. You could also unscrew these vacuum pods on either side, just being really careful, of course, if you disconnect the lines, not to break the plastic. It takes a whole lot of encouragement to get this thing out, even if the lower bolts are undone. You'll see I had to disconnect a couple of the vacuum tubes, and that helped a little bit. and then it was just a matter of getting it past these big wiring looms. And finally I got it out. But after all that, you can finally see where the blower motor and the resistor live underneath this thing. And I'm going to do yet another vacuum to get some of this stuff out of there. So this is the blower motor resistor on top, and this one's an aftermarket one. That's the only option really available other than a used one, which is what I'm going to put in, because this aftermarket one lasted about a year, and it gave me the failure where the blower was just stuck on all the time that the key was on. Anyway, you're going to remove the whole top half of this by undoing these 4 clips, 2 on either side, and then just remove these wires from the motor itself. And I've already unplugged it, so it's just a matter of pulling the wire through again. So now I'm going to go ahead and install the used part that I got from the junkyard. You'll see it has the Mercedes part number and everything on it. And if you're swapping this whole thing, then it's just a matter of getting it in place and doing the clasps up and then reconnecting all the power connections. And before I start to put anything back together, I'm going to get inside the car and just test that it's working. So you can hear I turn the AC unit on, and it is blowing out the vents, and it's responding to the fan speed changes. And I just go back around and check the blower itself. It looks like it's working fine. And before I went to put the car back together, I went ahead and arranged these vacuum lines again. There's these clasps along the body of this thing that they fit into. So back outside, we can start the kind of annoying process of getting this big piece back into place. And of course, you want to be careful not to bump the vacuum pods, especially where the little connectors are, because those could break. And then you have some new problems. And this time I am going to attempt to get at least one of the bolts that holds the front of this in. So I've got the connector zip tied up here just so it's not in my way. Here's a good trick if you want to get a bolt in place that you have to hold upside down like this one, and that it's not going to be magnetized inside the socket. Now it's just a matter of doing up this bolt and then the other bolts that are going to hold the rest of this piece in place. Once you've got the front bolts in, you can just tuck the wiring harnesses back down where they were before. And then I'm going to put this little plastic trim piece back on next to the vacuum pod. I think I'm just missing one for the other side. And here I'm just fastening that little stud piece with the rubber on it. Next, we're going to go ahead and reinstall the windshield wiper. This is pretty easy, just kind of reverse of the removal procedure, but don't do like I did, and go ahead and put the wiring harness through the body of the thing before you bolt down the wiper. You can get these 2 little trim pieces back in place with the wiper assembled. Just have to tuck the smaller U-shaped piece underneath the rubber there that goes under the windshield wiper. And after that, we can put these little plastic duct pieces back in place. You see I tried the metal clip that's supposed to hold the screw, but I just don't have any that fit. So what I ended up doing is just like letting it sit in place there basically. For this piece I actually do have the clasps that'll fit, so I went ahead and put some screws in on either side for this. And here putting the unfortunately still dirty cabin filter back in place. After this I just had to kind of lay the windshield cowl pieces back in place, and then I put this bit of weather strip back in. This job took me about an hour and a half, but you'll need to add some more time if you need to replace the resistor with an aftermarket piece.